Okay, I'm gonna piss off some people with this video, but let's get into it. What's up, Wonderlanders, and welcome back to my channel. I am the Hatter, and today we're going to be talking about the hot button issue of Confederate statues and the Confederate flag. Now, my opinion on this is that they do need to be removed sort of from public spaces, the public eye, especially, public property, like government sanctioned property, federal, state, whatever, and they need to be put in a museum. If you are a private property owner, private homeowner, have the flag up. Whatever, I don't care. There is a huge Confederate flag on the interstate between North Carolina and Virginia. Every time I'm driving back and forth, I see it all the time, and I'm like, yep, we've definitely entered the South every time I see it. But again, that flag is on private property, and they can do what they want. They have their freedom of speech, they can use it. So basically, my opinion is, remove them from all public spaces and put them in a museum. What doesn't need to happen is tearing them down illegally, by yourselves. I think that's just so stupid. Like, I understand y'all are angry, y'all are mad and upset, but I think you are taking that anger and frustration out on the wrong things. But tearing down abolitionists and statues paid for by ex-slaves is not the way. It's just not. Like, stop, what are you doing? But the Confederate statues are a different story entirely, especially in the historical context of which they were raised, which I will get into another video about it, but in this video I specifically just wanted to cover the Confederate statues, and it's almost impossible to talk about the Confederacy without talking about the Civil War and the little nuances of it. But if I did that, this video would end up being like 30 minutes to an hour long. So here I am, trying to keep it as short as possible for you guys. But don't worry, there is a method to my madness, and there is a reason why I believe the statues should be taken down. However, I do not believe that it is the right time. There is an entire generation before us that has essentially been gaslighted by their families and the education system in the South, telling them that the Confederate flag, or rather the Dixie flag, that's a whole nother thing. First off, this is the Confederate flag, the stars and bars of the South, as it were. And second, this is the rebel flag, or the Dixie flag, what most people associate with Southern pride, culture, history, etc., etc. Use of the Confederate flag isn't seen, at least not that I have seen, and I grew up in the South, but use of the rebel flag and the Dixie flag, as I grew up knowing it, has been seen. In fact, it was seen in the very public schools that I went to, an integrated public school, mind you, and it was actually before integration an all-black school. I digress. And the Confederate statues are something to be honored, as something to be proud of, as something to look back and just be fond of as your heritage. And when that happens, what you have to understand is that you are now dealing with a culture that has essentially been lied to its entire life. And when you try to erase that culture, people tend to fight back and get angry about it, and that's going to spark an entirely new generation that's going to be angry that you erased the previous generation's culture. Now, that's just a hypothetical, but like I said before on this channel, I'm an amateur historian, and I can see patterns in history. It's starting to repeat itself in the sense, with the Civil War and everything. Oh gosh, the whole Civil War. it's going to have to be another topic. It's going to have to be. Editor's note, personally, I grew up in the South, born and raised, and I was not taught that the Confederate flag or the Confederate statues were a bad thing. I was taught that it was something to be proud of, you know, Southern heritage and all of that. And so for the longest time, I was proud of my Southern heritage until I actually looked into it, until I actually learned what each of these things initially symbolized. Meaning the reasons behind that the flag was, you know, brought into being, the Dixie flag, the rebel flag, and why the statues were put up and everything, just the reasons behind it all. And I realized, hey, I've essentially been lied to my entire life about this. Or rather, the truth was just admitted. I still have Southern pride. It's just in understanding that our culture has basically been lied to by previous generations, and it is difficult to learn new things, especially when you knew something to be factual your entire life. It was incredibly jarring for me, especially, although I was very young at the time, to come to terms with the fact that the South was in the wrong during the Civil War. Doesn't mean the Union didn't do terrible things too. It just means that the South's reason for war was not what I believed it was, or rather was not what I was told that it was. And that is the case with a lot of my peers and a lot of my family from the South. And until, you know, their eyes can be opened about that, the statues can't come down, because then you're just going to end up with an entirely new generation that's angry at people who are trying to basically erase their heritage, the heritage that they've been told that they should be proud of, that they should idolize, and that they should honor. It's not going to work out. It's not going to be good if you do that. A culture, no matter how bad the culture is, needs to be handled with grace, respect, and dignity, or else the people of that culture are going to hold a grudge through generations. And we've seen that in like the past 100 years or so of American history. So how do we fix this problem? Well, I would say have, you know, votes. Have the people in these cities, in these towns, with, you know, the statues, the forts, the street names, the building names, whatever, have them vote on whether or not to take the statue down, replace it with something else. And you'll find that that is a better and more peaceful way to do this than just to have one side tear it down violently, illegally, and just hazardously. Because I can't imagine, like, nobody didn't get hurt tearing those statues down. You know, NASCAR banned the use of the rebel flag, and that's perfectly fine. You know, they're a private company, whatever. But a private citizen that goes to NASCAR, sure, they can still carry it if they want to. You know, that's their right as a United States citizen to be able to wave the rebel flag. And they have that right until, you know, the United States says otherwise. So, but to those of you out there who are saying, you know, well, if you tear down the statues, how are we going to know history? I suggest pick up a book, read a book, actually learn the real history of the people you are idolizing, because you may come to find that they're not as all great as you thought they were. And to people who are, trying to tear them down, I also suggest you pick up a book and read it, because you might find out that they aren't as bad as you thought they were.